Happy New Year, Glendale, and welcome to the January 7th meeting of the Glendale City Council. May we have roll call?
Yes, council members Brotman,
Here.
Garpetian,
Here.
Kasakian,
Here.
Najarian, and Mayor Asatrian.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the invocation.
Let us begin by acknowledging that we are standing on the indigenous lands of the Gabrielino Tongva people. As we begin this new year, let us approach our work with hope, determination, and a renewed commitment to serving our community. Today, we keep in our hearts the safety of all those affected by the strong winds sweeping through our region. May our residents, first responders, and those working to protect our city be shielded from harm in the days ahead. In this new year, may we have wisdom, collaboration, and compassion as we make decisions so that we may shape a brighter and safer future for all. Thank you.
Thank you, and may we have your report?
Yes, the agenda for the January 7, 2025 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on January 2nd, 2025 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
All right, and what's next?
Next are presentations and appointments. And the first item is agenda preview for the meetings of Tuesday, January 14, 2025.
All right.
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, good evening. For the meeting of January 14, 2025, we don't have any business agenda items in the afternoon. In the evening, for the regular meeting of council, commencing at 6 p.m. 2 consent items from GWP, adopting specifications for painting street light standards in the Ross Moines neighborhood and Honolulu Road area, and directing the city clerk to advertise for bids, followed by IT departments, acceptance of funding from Governor's Office of Emergency Services, state and local cybersecurity grants. Under action items from Management Services, introduction of an ordinance to amend and restate the city's adopted prohibitions on the use of polyester products and single-use plastics. That includes directing staff to develop incentive programs to support the transition to the proposed plastic waste reduction regulations, and to engage the services of a consultant to provide continued education and support to organizations impacted by these regulations. From Public Works, sole source procurement of an electric vehicle patrol unit for the Glendale Police Department, followed by City Attorney's Office, report on rules for the conduct of council meetings. That includes options for oral communications and public comment on agenda items, matters related to the order of business for council agendas, rules governing council deliberations and debate, discussion of policy for removing items from agenda after publication, and rules governing the quorum and removing disruptive individual from council meetings. On Public Works, approval of fleet electrification study update, followed by proposed staffing for city council members. And then from Community Development Department, selection of a consultant for the Verdugo Wash Master Plan. From Management Services, Human Relations Committee update and direction. And finally, from Human Resources Department, classifications and compensation alignment. That concludes the draft tentative agenda for January 14th, ma'am.
That's all?
That's all.
All right, well, at the very least, let's see if we can get through this meeting quickly. And what's next?
Next is item B, nominations for appointment, Brotman Kasakian, 12/17/2024. The following are the appointments: Ted Flanagan, GWP Commission, seat 4, replacing Peterson. Edith Fuentes, Planning Commission, seat 2, reappointment of Fuentes. Alex Parajon, Audit Committee, seat 2, replacing Mavian. Erasto Ongeko Jr., Building and Fire Board of Appeals, seat 4, which was vacant. And Mayor Satrian, would you like me to also read item C into the record?
Sure. Thank you.
Item C is nomination for appointment by Brotman Asatrian, 12/17/2024. The first appointment is Sue Bell Yang, Arts and Culture Commission, seat 1, replacing Tufenkian. And the final one is Regina Alcazar, Parks, Recreation and Community Services Commission, seat 1, reappointment of Alcazar.
All right. I think before we proceed, I would like to just make a comment that just received the notice from our city attorney's office a few minutes ago, or half an hour ago, about the replacements and what that would mean. I would like, for the record, to note that I would like to see at some point Mavian and Tufenkian to be reappointed. I recognize the new system is replacing their seat, but just wanted that for the record.
Okay.
I would, if I could just, I would just recommend if you are going to move them all together, maybe just move 3B together and 3C together since they're separate nominating panels.
3D, okay. I'll make a motion to approve the appointments under 3B.
Yes.
Under 3B, I have a couple of comments to make regarding Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
I'm okay with all the other nominations except this single one. I believe that we should be a little careful. I mean, I read Mr. Flanagan's resume. It's an extensive experience and resume that he has. Very knowledgeable, very experienced. But I don't think we should appoint consultants or activists or lobbyists for any of the positions. My understanding is Mr. Flanagan had 2 PSAs with the city. One was from July of 2019 until June of 2020. Then he was appointed in June of 2020 until June of 2022. And again, this is what I was, told. My understanding is that he resigned and obtained another PSA in July of 2022 until December 2022. I believe that the role of commissioners, I served on commissions for 10 years. The role of the commissioners is from average Joes of this community who's there to, I'm not saying that rest of them don't, but to just do their best to serve the commissions, to help the city, and be kind of in the middle, not be too much to this side of any issues or to the other side. We have the same, some issues with other commissions that we'll talk about it when they come forward, but I cannot support this nomination based on the facts that Mr. Flanagan was appointed as a commissioner, and within 2 years he resigned, and I believe that there was a PSA awarded to his company. I don't know if they were RFP'd or not, but that's irrelevant at this point. Again, activists, lobbyists, and consultants, I don't think they should be. I rather have a gentleman like Mr. Flanagan, who's this experienced, to be part of the team that we can hire as a consultant to help the city develop a better program than being a commissioner that's just an advisory board. So that's all. With the rest of the commissioners, I'm okay with.
Right.
So do we separate that out? How do we do the voting?
Assuming, it sounds like Councilman Garpetian wants to either abstain or vote no on that nomination, so perhaps if you're okay, make the nomination on the other 3, take those up, and then take the nomination on Mr. Flanagan after that.
Well, before you move, I would like some clarifying points based on Mr. Garpetian's comments. I think for the word activist, that would be very difficult for anybody that wants to be serving on our committees, because they tend to be people that are already active in the community one way or another. But did the city ever go through a process of having registration for lobbyists?
Mayor Satrian, we do have a process for registration of lobbyists for companies that are retained by another party to advocate for that third party before the city.
Okay.
And yeah, we do have a process for that.
Okay, and has Mr. Flanagan been a registered lobbyist or?
My understanding is no, I don't think he was ever a lobbyist in the context of our lobbying ordinance. He was never paid by a third party to lobby the city of Glendale
Okay.
for any particular thing. He did, as noted correctly by Mr. Garpetian, he was at one point, his company did work with the city at some point
Okay.
before and after his service on the commission.
And that was through an RFP process?
Madam Mayor, I know the most recent one wasn't through an RFP process. I'm not sure about the first one.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
So should I, maybe, okay, so let me make a motion for the nominations of Edith Fuentes, Alex Parahan, and is it Ernesto Onqueco?
Or it sounds like a roster.
Erasto Onqueco. Mr. Onqueco. Okay, I'll make those three initially, and then we can move on and do the others. Is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
And then I'll have some comments on the Flanagan
Okay.
nomination as well.
Right.
Council members Brotman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian, and Mayor Satrian.
Yes.
And I can make the motion for the nomination of Ted Flanagan to the GWP Commission. As was noted, he was a commissioner before. He has also done some work for the city, but for those who may not be aware, Ted Flanagan is a regional, if not nationwide, recognized individual in the field of energy efficiency and consulting with not just Glendale, but various agencies. We're actually very fortunate to have him be a Glendale resident. And I believe enough time has passed from when he was doing paid work for the city, at least over 12 months. And now this appointment, which is, I think, when it comes to contributions to council members and conflicts of interest, it's the same period of time, right? It's 12 months since a contribution is received before a council member sitting on this dais is conflicted from making a decision that the law says impacts their decision.
With respect to a financial conflict of interest, yes.
Yes. So I don't specifically, I understand where Councilmember Garpetian, you may have some concerns, and that's understandable if that's the way you are going to view this. I think that, you know, when we see an asset and we see someone who can lead with knowledge, experience, and expertise, we are fortunate to have a person to serve in that capacity. So I make that motion. Thank you.
And I will second it. Let me just make a quick comment. Okay. I also think that we are very lucky as a city to have somebody like Ted who will serve pro bono on a committee or a commission such as this one. I actually don't want average Joes. I want people who can really bring their expertise to bear and contribute something and help guide us. So that's what we have in Ted. And I would say he's not an activist. He's straight down the line.
Yeah.
I appointed him originally, and when the Grayson question came up and there was a debate about whether we should have 5 Wartzillas or 3 Wartzillas, he voted for 5. He didn't just say, well, I'm going to be the activist and I'm going to do what you know, Councilman Brotman wants. No, he made up his own mind. He's very independent, and that's what we need. Independent, smart, experienced, and that's what we'll get with Ted. So I second the nomination.
I never said that he was an activist. I said we should not appoint, in general, activists, lobbyists, and consultants. And he's a consultant, and he resigned too for the contract, I believe. But anyways, it is what it is.
Point of clarification, can you describe or explain what you define as an activist?
No, this is not a debate, so
I wasn't trying to engage in a debate. I asked a question.
I voiced my opinion, it was yours, we take a vote, and that's how democracy works.
No, I don't think he was trying to debate. He was just trying to get
I wasn't trying to,
I
Mayor,
now
I wasn't
have to
trying to
debate
debate.
both of you?
I'm not looking
Okay.
for a debate,
Then let's
Mr.
take a vote.
Garpetian.
You don't know what activist is?
I know what I understand an activist is, and I don't, now this is a debate because I asked a question and you're answering it with a question, Councilmember Garpetian. I don't want to create an awkward situation that prevents us from doing the city's business. I'm happy to have this conversation with you after the council meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. And just before we go for a vote, thank you for your willingness to serve.
Council members Brotman,
Yes.
Karpetian,
No.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian, Mayor Asatryan.
Yes.
Okay, and now I will put in a motion for the nomination of Sue Bell Yank for Arts and Culture Commission and Regina Alcazar for Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission.
And that requires a second. If it does, I'd be happy to second it.
All right. Roll call.
Council members Brotman,
Yes.
Karpetian,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian, Mayor Asatryan.
Yes. What's next?
Next are consent items, including minutes. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before motion is proposed. Mayor Asatryan, we do not have any comments or calls on this item.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move the consent calendar.
Second.
Roll call.
Council members Brotman,
Yes.
Karpetian,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian, Mayor Asatryan.
Yes. Next.
Next are city council and staff comments.
Okay. Would like to go first?
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Same here. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome back to Glendale City Council meetings.
And to all those who celebrated Christmas yesterday, Merry Christmas, especially those in the Armenian Apostolic faith, as well as those who are still waiting to celebrate Christmas in Jerusalem. The traditional day of Christmas was still another week until it is celebrated in the Holy Land. Thank you.
Okay, and I want to say Happy New Year to everyone too, but I do have some sad news. Just before Christmas, we lost a great man, dear friend of mine, and an important member of our community, Jack Woolworth. And I have prepared a few words I would like to say about Jack, and I should mention that Jack's family is in the audience along with a number of colleagues and friends. Jack is probably best known to those of us here on the dais and a lot of people in the community as one of the leaders of the Glendale Environmental Coalition. He was with GEC from its early days, but over time took on more responsibility and eventually became co-chair of the board along with Jackie Gish, who is in the audience here today. He was passionate about addressing climate change, surely the single most critical issue of our time. He didn't necessarily love public speaking, but he came to council many times to speak on energy and climate issues because he knew that silence was complicity. And he understood that what we did at the local level really, really mattered. He did it all selflessly, squeezing it into his busy work schedule because he cared deeply about people here and all around the world. He stayed involved even as he became increasingly ill and was going through difficult cancer treatments. Just a little over a year ago, Jack volunteered to represent the Glendale Environmental Coalition on the Stakeholder Advisory Board for Glendale Water and Power's Integrated Resource Plan, attending every meeting and actively participating throughout. He even came to the GWP Commission meeting as recently as this past November to speak on Glendale's clean energy plans. He refused to give up. Jack was equally active as a board member of the Glen Oaks Canyon Homeowners Association and threw himself into the fight over the Shoal Canyon Biogas Project. He and I ultimately came out on different sides of that, but it never affected our friendship. On the sidelines of all this, and I'm being facetious here, Jack squeezed in a very successful career in television. For 3 decades, he traveled the country and the world as a cinematographer and a TV producer. He chased wanted criminals with police for the hit series Cops, and he worked for a time on CNN's Reza Aslan show Believer, covering Haitian evangelical and voodoo sects and India's Agora religion and caste system. But of all Jack's vast accomplishments in TV, the pinnacle was his 20 seasons as a producer traveling the world for the hit series The Amazing Race. With The Amazing Race, Jack's normal day at the office might include surfing the waves off Bali, coordinating bagpipe players in Scotland, exploring the urban culture of Medellin, Colombia, or wandering the open spaces of Mongolia. If there was an exciting challenge or competition that aired over the 2 decades of this incredible series, Jack not only produced and captured it, but in many cases was the advanced man responsible for testing it himself first. And it was this lifetime spent traveling the world that gave Jack the opportunity to meet incredible human beings from every land and every walk of life, behold wonders many of us only see in pictures, and truly experience the tastes, textures, and very essence of the rich tapestry of humanity and the natural world. When Jack's health became compromised, there was a real outpouring of love from around the globe in calls, texts, and video messages, a clear sign of the bonds he formed with the people who he crossed paths with throughout his life and career. Needless to say, Jack was also deeply devoted to his family, his loving wife, Dorothy, his cherished child, Montana, 3 beloved siblings, and the many members of his extended family who brought such joy to his life. He loved them all dearly, and they loved him back just as much. I will miss you, Jack. I know many others will miss you just as much as I do. But your work will live on. When I last saw you, just a few days before you left us, I promised I would never give up the fight to put the world right for all the people that don't have the power to affect change, here and abroad, alive today and coming to inhabit this world in the future. I will stick to that promise. Take care, Jack. Be well. And please send back some footage from the stars if you can. Thank you.
I'd like to also use this opportunity to give my deepest condolences to the family and friends. Jack really was an amazing activist who was very much valued. I loved all of our conversations, and it really saddened me to hear that he's no longer with us. I would definitely say I also appreciated that he always had 1 day a week set aside for his wife. And anytime we tried to schedule a meet or a conversation, then he said that day is reserved for his family, and that is how he keeps making sure that they are strong and that they are healthy. And so that says a lot about a man that cared so deeply about various issues, but also knew how to balance between his passions and his family. And so truly, we'll definitely miss him. And I want to take this opportunity to note that I'd like to adjourn the meeting in his honor and in his memory.
Thank you. I want to extend my personal condolences. I knew Jack as well, although not as closely as Councilmember Brotman, who had worked with him and been in trenches with him. What I think will be most missed about him is his sense of humor. Even though at times we kind of, I think he may have been frustrated with my positions or not taken so lightly to my embracing of what he was most passionate about. What I appreciated was his patience. I appreciated his understanding. And most importantly, I think I appreciated his sincerity for the fight he was involved in, because he wasn't doing it for himself. That much was very clear, especially towards the end when he knew that he would not be around to see the fruits of his labors. There's a saying that I think some Native American tribes have, and some probably other cultures do as well, including an Armenian culture, where they say the day you plant the seed to the tree that you know you won't sit under the shade of is the day you become closer to humanity. And he certainly knew that what he fought for, others who come after him will benefit from. So my condolences.
Well, I didn't have the opportunity or the chance to get to know Jack on a personal level, but I met him on several meetings and events here and there. I didn't know him personally, but hearing his bio and his lifestyle, he was a man of integrity and respect, and he's a fellow cycler, and traveling the world. It tells a lot when he receives messages from all over the world. And my deepest condolences to his family and loved ones and friends. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Yeah, okay. Thank you. So I have actually a prepared statement for my portion of the comments. I want to inform you that the city has officially activated the Emergency Operations Center at Level 2 in response to the severe high winds and red flag alert currently impacting our community. This activation allows key departments, including fire, police, Glendale Water and Power, and Public Works, along with our other city departments, to respond to and address issues caused by these extreme weather conditions. According to the National Weather Service, the worst of the winds are expected between 10 p.m. tonight and 5 a.m. tomorrow, Wednesday, January 8th. Earlier today, between midnight and now, our teams responded to 2 arcing wires, roughly 20 wires down, 7 hazard investigations, 3 elevator rescues, 37 trees down, 29 downed limbs, 98 dispatch calls. As of 5:30 p.m., we had a total of 20 power outages over the course of the event, affecting 8,000 residents. Crews have been working tirelessly in the field since 5 a.m. to restore power, and we are in contact with our GUSD and GCC partners. The causes of outages include debris in power lines, wires coming together due to winds, tree branches, and mylar balloons making contact with power lines. To give you some historical context and perspective, during the major windstorm in 2011, Glendale experienced 133 incidents over a 24-hour period, compared to the normal 42 incidents in a typical day. Additionally, our call center handled 5 times the normal call volume during that event. I want to walk you through some ways that you can stay safe and stay informed. You can stay connected with us by enrolling in our emergency communication alert programs that can be seen on screen. Report down wires or trees immediately by calling the appropriate departments. And I believe that number is listed and included on the website. Visit us online at glendaleca.gov and follow us on X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for real-time updates. On our website, you can sign up for additional emergency notifications. For additional assistance or information, you can also email the city communications team at communications@glendaleca.gov or call 818-545-4213. Let's remain safe and support one another as we navigate through these challenging conditions. The city is committed to providing essential services and addressing issues as they arise. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our staff for working around the clock to make sure that our community is safe. City staff and city departments will be available around the clock, and I know that together we'll get through this safely. Thank you. And Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to all who are celebrating. Right.
Next are community event announcements, 3 minutes, 5 speaker limit per mayor policy. This item also permits speakers wishing to speak under general oral communication subject to the 3-minute time limit. Discussion is limited to matters not on the agenda. Mayor Satrian, we have 2 speaker cards on this item.
Okay.
Our first speaker is Dr. Jackie Gish. Dr. Gish, you have 3 minutes.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm going to talk about Jack as well. I've known Jack for about 5 years while working together first on issues related to the Shoal landfill and biogas plant, and then working for the Glendale Environmental Coalition. We have been co-chairs of GEC for the last year and a half. He was also on the Gotcha Association board, the Glen Oaks Canyon Homeowners Association board. Some of this is going to repeat what Dan said. Jack was actively involved with environmental issues, especially related to clean energy. He was GEC's representative on the STAG for the IRP, to push for Glendale to adopt an aggressive clean energy plan. Jack totally committed himself to the STAG, attending a half dozen or so meetings during 2023, as well as reading many documents. Members of the STAG and GEC and allies on City Council were successful in having Glendale's IRP, which was filed in early 2024, be the plan that Jack and others advocated for. Despite his illness, Jack usually volunteered for various assignments, whether to talk to a City Council member, address a City Council meeting, write something up, or prepare for these tasks. Jack spoke calmly and deliberately. Many people were unaware that he was ill. His personal life reflected his deep interest in the environment. He loved riding his e-bike, and you saw a picture of it when Dan was talking. He and his wife have invested in solar and batteries and for the house and recently purchased an EV. So he was really committed to the environment. I miss Jack and the collaboration we had, sharing the GEC leadership and talking through approaches to fight for clean energy and other environmental causes. I admired him tremendously. Glendale has lost an important and dedicated voice.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joanna Pringle.
Hello, I'm Joanna Pringle. I just wanted to add my voice to honoring Jack Walworth and his outstanding contributions to making sure that Glendale is a healthy, safe, and wonderful, pleasant place to be and live. And he gave so many countless hours. I just have such deep respect for the amount of homework he did and all the technical aspects of every project. And then he was diligent about coming to every meeting. I especially admired, his involvement in, as Dan and Jackie have mentioned, the stakeholder technical advisory group for the IRP. And he was very ill at that time, but he made sure he was at every meeting, contributed enormously, and just never showed he was suffering. He was always much more concerned for all of us. So I know that I speak for everyone involved in Glendale Environmental Coalition that I'll miss him, and I'm sure they will too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that is all for this section.
All right. And what's next?
Next is item 12, discussion of council member future agenda requests. Item A, Mayor Asatrian's request to agendize a discussion of the city's policy regarding the detention of individuals based on immigration status, moved from December 17, 2024.
All right. Just want to say thank you to my colleagues for moving this. I was not feeling well during the last meeting. The only reason that I brought this up is because obviously I've received concerns from residents about what resources we would be allocating or assisting ICE. We continuously talk about how we house the largest immigrant population in all of California. And I wanted to use this opportunity to make sure that there aren't any loopholes within our contracts in us collaborating with ICE or using any of our city resources to detain or go after the immigrant communities, as is the plan from Washington come January, just a few weeks. So if I can have Chief Sid, I know that he's sitting here, speak to, I know you sent a memo. I know our city attorney also sent over details to my council colleagues and I want to make sure that we're not collaborating. I recognize that there are state laws that would prohibit that to begin with, but if you can just kind of walk us through what we have in place, and if there is any thing that we need to do on our end, whether it's the reaffirmation of our previous statement
that we have in the books, or any of the contracts that we need to look at?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Gosh, I will start with being as clear and straightforward and emphatic, I will say, about the fact that the Glendale Police Department does not, and as far as I know, never has been directly involved with any operations or any focus or anything to do in that regards to doing immigration enforcement. It is generally out of the scope of municipal law enforcement, local law enforcement like the Glendale Police Department to be involved in that. Immigration operations and efforts are generally reserved for the federal government and for federal entities. So both by policy, law, and practice, our police department doesn't engage, doesn't directly assist ICE, Homeland Security with doing immigration enforcement. Moreover, going back a few years now, there was the passing of SB 54, which in a nutshell essentially made it law and has pretty strict guidelines about to what extent and really largely at all if local law enforcement can cooperate with the federal government in conducting immigration enforcement. The Glendale Police Department is in full compliance with SB 54. Our department's policy is outlined and written in a manner that it closely models the government code and SB 54 and everything we have in there. So again, by both policy and practice, we do not engage in that. I know something that was addressed years ago before I was with the organization. The department does have, since I believe 2007, a contract with ICE and Homeland Security. And in a nutshell, what that contract allows for, if utilized, is that while the department would not engage and go out and be a part of any sweeps or do any immigration enforcement out in the field, operations, transporting folks, it would allow our facility, our local jail facility, to serve as a temporary detention center for any individuals that were already in ICE custody. Historically, what that has looked like were individuals that were already incarcerated either in local county jail or in state prison, and as they are being released, prior to their release, ICE takes custody of them, and this contract would allow them to utilize our facility for 24 to 48 hours to house them here. They're not booked here, they're not processed here, they're simply housed here. That said, while that contract has been in place with ICE since 2007 and is totally within the guidelines that is allowed by SB 54, the contract has not been utilized since 2018. And even going back in 2018, that was a total of 6 individuals. So we haven't used it. It hasn't been utilized in some 7 some odd years. Again, past that, our police department, our staff, and our resources are not utilized or in support of any immigration enforcement operations, sweep, or otherwise. And then the last thing I would just say, as the police chief and on behalf of the city and our police department, that our relationships, when we talk about things like community policing and our mission as a police department in keeping this community safe, a big part of how we do that is having trust and having the confidence of the people that we serve here in Glendale, all 200,000+ of them, regardless of their immigration status, their culture, their ethnic background, whatever the case might be. That's something I personally take really serious. Our police department does, and we understand that involving ourselves in immigration enforcement in any way, doing anything that would break that trust or have any people in this community feel less than confident to be able to approach a police officer, report crimes, call us when they need help, strikes at the heart of what we're trying to accomplish. That's something we're very sensitive to, work hard to continually foster and preserve. So I will stop with my comments there, and of course available for any questions you might have.
So I think for me, particularly in the last several years, we've seen an influx of immigrants coming in from Armenia and Artsakh, Russia and Ukraine. I think Glendale Youth Alliance was noting those numbers are also very high. When we talk about somebody already being, they're just being held here because they've already committed some sort of crime, or is it because of an immigration status?
Any individual that we the Glendale Police Department detains or arrests is being detained or arrested based on an independent penal code, health and safety code, vehicle violations, some violation that they made that is completely independent of their immigration status. As a point of practice, we do not inquire about people's immigration status, let's say on a traffic stop, during a detention, during a field investigation that might result in arrest. And once they are in our custody for whatever given violation that they may have committed, their immigration status, as far as the police department is concerned, has no impact on how long, if they're going to be detained or transferred to any folks. It's also worth mentioning that every year as a part of SB 54, we have to report out to the state any cooperation, and namely any folks that we have transferred to the custody of SB 54, to the federal government in line with SB 54. Once again, in 2024, that number was 0. We are in the process of reporting that out to the DOJ now. So again, our efforts are focused on maintaining safety in the community, upholding state and local law, has nothing to do with immigration enforcement. And in those instances, when someone ends up in our custody, their immigration status is going to have no bearing on what that process looks like for us, how long they are detained, or go ahead.
But the contract that we have with ICE for them utilizing the Glendale jail, I think what I'm asking is not necessarily what the Glendale Police Department does when I recognize we're not doing anything with immigration. I'm asking if it is being utilized because there was another crime committed, or is it utilized, or could it be utilized simply because of immigration status by ICE?
So, and I just want to reiterate because it's an important point. The contract has not been utilized since prior to 2018 was the most recent time. In those instances, from my understanding, all of the individuals that were temporarily detained here were in the custody of ICE or Homeland Security for committing an independent crime, and because of that, their immigration status, they were detained here for a matter of a couple of days while the federal government, ICE, began their administrative process, oftentimes for deportation, but ended up in ICE custody because of an independent crime outside of immigration.
Okay. I think that clarifies things for me if my colleagues have any questions. Yes.
Just, I know this item, this item is intended to decide whether we're going to, bring it back or have an agenda discussion, which I don't really think we need to do. I think you've given us a good explanation. I know you've written to us. We've talked to probably most or all of us individually. All I would ask is, we don't know what's going to happen, right? And there's a lot of talk, and we'll see, right? But and I appreciate that, your position is you want to keep the community safe, uphold the law. That's what it is, right? But if we get into a situation where there seems to be a conflict, like we're being pressed to do things, maybe, from the federal authorities that we think are now could potentially force us to violate California law, or I guess the other way around, right? California law being interpreted in a way that, it could be a violation. Just let us know. I would just like to make sure that, that we're eager to hear if you're being put in a position where you're having to make some calls, because there are threats coming from Washington, about sanctuary cities. I mean, we're not a sanctuary city. I don't even know what that is. But regardless, there are threats coming, and then there's state law, and you're kind of in the middle, or you could potentially end up in the middle. Sure. And we want to make sure that you're never uncomfortable, never at a loss for what's the right path, and that you keep us informed. That's basically it.
I appreciate your comments. I will certainly do that and keep an open line of communications. That said, I feel really confident in the fact that whether myself as a police chief or the police department is not going to be in a position that we are being forced by the federal government to take any action that really would be outside their purview to be able to force us to take any action. Granted, I'll be the first to tell you that on the flip side, as the local police department, I cannot and we cannot prevent the federal government from coming to this area and taking their own action. No. But forcing us to be a part of that action, they cannot do. And we will not be looking to be involved in that. And the last piece I'll say, and I know I've shared this with some of the council members, including yourself, Councilmember Brotman, and just wanting to speak to our community and try to set some of them at ease that with all respect to our federal leaders and so on and so forth, the idea to come into local communities like Glendale or the greater Los Angeles areas and do mass sweeps just logistically presents an incredible amount of challenges. And the federal government would largely have to rely on local agencies to be able to accomplish that, which is contrary to our state law here in California. So I say that to say that it's not very practical, and I don't see it occurring. That said, point taken, and I will certainly be communicating with this body and the city manager if any of that starts to come down the pipe to our police department.
And I think provided the data that you did share from the use of the facilities by ICE, I think that this discussion around immigration from President Trump had occurred the last time he was also elected, and my understanding is, and what I've seen in the reports, is that our facilities were not utilized during that time either. As a matter of fact, the Obama administration was the one that utilized the facilities the most. So.
Statistically speaking, that's correct.
Okay, all right, okay. I'm okay with what we have in the books, and I thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And the police department. Did my colleagues have any comments or questions? We're good? Okay. All right. That's all I have. And then we have 3 oral communications. Yes.
Yes, next is oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The city manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report. We have 2 speaker cards and 1 caller. Our first speaker is Patrick Murphy. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Council. I guess I forgot a rule during the December 17th meeting by calling in for all communications after I spoke during the first 3-minute session, so my bad. Sobering financial report delivered on that December 17th meeting and thank you for addressing that item in the evening instead of in the afternoon so people can see what's going on with our financial situation. I believe we need to start cutting other expenses, such as pausing the general plan update EIR that is moving along too quickly. As regards the general plan update outreach, Mr. Calvert, during that meeting on the 17th, after I spoke, read off a list of a dozen or so methods of outreach that evening. He said there was quite a bit of noticing that went on. He mentioned the county clerk's office website. He mentioned a local newspaper. He mentioned city environmental review website, the Glendale Plan website, and email blast for subscribers only. He said it was posted on social media. However, the staff member at that scoping meeting that I attended with 3 other members of the community was unaware of any postings on, for example, Nextdoor, and was unaware that the city of Glendale had an account on Nextdoor. And I did not see any postings on social media with respect to the update on the general plan. In addition, the meeting was not announced during council meetings. I had asked her specifically, did you take the opportunity during the 3-minute public announcements to advise the public that this was going on? And she did not. There were 4 people there again at that scoping meeting. There was only 1 scoping meeting, and there's an old expression that the proof is in the pudding, and only 4 people showed up, and we were outnumbered by staff, and those 4 people that showed up are people that are active in the community. This process is a major event for the city, and essentially no one in the community is aware of it. And according to the staff member at the meeting, the state is not requiring the update. Now, I'm not saying an update should not take place, but Mayor Satrian, you're a champion for outreach, right? And when you have 4 people show up, people that are active in the community, and you don't have anybody else there, and they're outnumbered by staff, then there's something wrong, regardless of how much notice was given with this website or that website. I mean, I don't look at the county websites. I look at the city of Glendale, and I get notices from the city of Glendale. If I'm interested in something with the county, like a a transportation plan, I was part of a Zoom call, then I participate in that, right? But we're not getting the proper outreach for the people of this community when you have 4 people that show up. When the Wash Visioning Project came up, the Verdugo Wash Visioning Project came up in February of 22, I don't know how much money was spent, but I imagine it was 10, 20 grand that was spent on that outreach. There were 3 locations in the city, and there were a total, according to staff that I received in writing, there were a total of 120 people that attended the park or the downtown area or Fremont Park events. 120 people out of 200,000. It's woefully inadequate. Something wrong. We're talking about major changes that are going to go on within this city over the next 20 years, and people are unaware of it. Now, you have a decision to make with respect to the draft EIR and the final EIR, I guess. The information that was provided to the public started in November of this year, and the deadline is January 10th this week for suggestions on scoping, all during the holiday period. My recommendation to you is to pause on spending any money on draft EIRs or EIRs until the outreach is more comprehensive. Lastly, I want to thank all of the council members who voted for life safety to restore Brand Boulevard to its previous condition. The one downside is the cost to remove it. Based on the signage that was placed this past weekend on Brand a couple of days ago, the work is going to take 4 days. That is approximately $105,000 per day spent to remove those items. $105,000 per day. You got to think about that. Let that sink in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rafiq Babakhanian, and he has requested a translator, so I will double his time. You have 10 minutes.
Good evening. Չեմ ուզում քաղաքային խորհրդի նախորդ որոշումների մասին խոսել,
I don't want to talk about the previous decisions of the City Council,
բայց կուզեմ անդրադառնալ 2024 թվականի նոյեմբերի 19-ի խորհրդի որոշմանը,
but I would want to talk about the decision of in November of 2024,
համարելով այն
considering
հապճեպ
it to be abrupt,
մակերեսային, թերի, ոչ համարժեք, ժամանակավրե,
inadequate, I'm really sorry,
մակերեսային, թերի, ոչ համարժեք,
on the surface, inadequate and not compatible.
Կուզեմ ձեր ուշադրությունը հրավիրել, որ ձեզ ենթակա աշխատակազմի կողմից չհիմնավորված զեկույց է ներկայացվել Adams Scopite փողոցների հատման վայրում ստոպսային տեղադրելու, մեքենաների պարկինգները վերացնելու մասին։
I would want to bring to your attention the fact that the team that was hired by you has provided you with an inadequate and improper information about placing the stop signs on the corner of Adams and what post there? Schofield.
Scopite։
On the corner of Adams and Schofield.
Ըստ ինձ չհիմնավորված զեկույցում նշում են, որ Adams փողոցի հարավային հատվածի 42 բնակարանների յուրաքանչյուրից մեկ բնակչի, այսինքն 42 մարդ կողմ են, իբրև թե կողմ են քննարկել ստոպսայինը տեղադրելու։
They're stating that 42 residents of the block, the whole, they have voted pro placing the stop sign.
Սակայն 42 բնակիչներից 10-ը դեմ են եղել եւ 4-ը բանավոր, 10-ը գրավոր դեմ են եղել,
but 10 of them were against it in written form, and 4 of them, you have 4 inch?
Եվ 4-ը բանավոր են դեմ
and 4 of them verbally were against it.
Այսինքն ինժեներական բաժնի կողմից ներկայացված այս զեկուցագրում նշվում է
In the report
76
from your engineering department states that 76
նշվում է 76.7%-ը կողմ են։
it states that 76.7% voted for it.
Նշանակում է, որ եթե 42-ից հանենք 10 մարդ,
Which
ընդեղ մնում է 32 մարդ։ Ասացեք խնդրեմ, 32 մարդուց մարդը կազմում է 76.7%,
If we'll subtract 10 people from 42, tell me the remaining 32 constitute 76%?
այսինքն դա մոտավորապես մի 27 եւ կես մարդ, ինչպես հասկանալ։
27.5%? How should I understand this?
Այդ ամենը մի կողմ։ Իմ ընտանիքը ես խոսում եմ իմ ընտանիքի մասին,
I'm talking about my family now.
եթե հարկ լինի, ստիպված կդիմեմ փողոցի բնակիչներին, ունենալով նրանց ստորագրությունները, որովհետև որքան հասկացա, փողոցի բնակիչների
If needed, I'll talk to the residents on my streets, because from what I understand, the residents are
հենց փողոցի բնակիչների պահանջ խնդրանքով կարող է կատարվել պետական մոտեցում, բոլորին լավ, իսկ մեկին բացարձակապես վատ, որ ես մասնիկն եմ կազմում հենց այդ փողոցի բնակիչներին։
From what I understand, I can make a official statement with their support for everyone to benefit from it, but for one person to get the worst.
Իմ ընտանիքից երկու անդամ հաշմանդամներ կան։
I have two handicapped people in my family.
5 աշխատողներ անմիջապես այդ համարյա թե նույն ժամին դուրս են գալիս աշխատանքի եւ
5
վերադառնում։
workers leave pretty much at the same time for work and return from work every day.
Ես խնդրել էի եւ նորից դարձյալ խնդրում եմ,
I have asked before and I'm asking again.
աշխարհը երկիրը փուլ չի գա, եթե անգամ parking stop sign-ը պահպանվի, բայց parking-ները հետ վերադարձվի, որից մեկը handicap, մեկն էլ սովորական բարձ
I don't think the world will
կայանատեղի։
come to the end if the stop signs will be kept and the parking spaces will be returned, including one for a handicap and make a handicap and making
Մեկը սովորական։
one handicap and one regular.
Հիմա ինձ կհարցնեք, այդպես չի լինի, օրենքը արգելում է։ Ես հակադարձում եմ, եթե նման
You may
հարցում
tell
կլինի,
me it is impossible because the law does not allow it. I'm countering that by saying
100 տարի երթևեկությունը եղել է, այդ տարածքում մեքենաները կանգնել են եւ ոչինչ չի խանգարել։
for 100 years the traffic went through and cars stopped there and nothing, no one minded.
Փողոցի երթևեկության ինտենսիվությունը մեղմելու համար ես ինքս եմ արտահայտվել կարգավորման նման եղանակին։
I have expressed my concerns about trying to lessen the traffic through our streets.
Ես եղել եմ հարգարժան Դանիել Հերնանդեսի մոտ ընդունելության 2 ժամ զրուցել ենք։
I've visited respected Daniel Hernandez and we've talked for 2 hours.
Նա պատճառաբանում է, որ ինքը երբեք չի կարող փոխել այդ կարգավիճակը, քանի որ արդեն օրենքի ուժ է ստացել։
He's explaining that he cannot change it because it has already has passed and it's a law.
Դարձյալ հարգելով խորհրդին եւ Daniel Hernandezին նշեմ հետեւյալը։
With respect towards the decision and the council and Daniel Hernandez, I'll
Նույն այդ բողոք գանգատը կարգավորելու ընթացքում գտնվել է լուծում։ Ես կարող եմ հեռախոսով նկարել եմ, կարող եմ բոլորին ցույց տամ, եթե միտեղ ես կսխալվեմ, թող փախարակեն ինձ։ Պահպանվել է 3 բիզնես կետերի պարկինգները, ընդամենը 1.5 ֆիտ հեռավորությամբ։ կանգնած մեքենան դուրը բացի կկպնի, ստապ սայնում կանգնող մեքենային եւ հակառակը խնդրում եմ։
Փոքր նախադասություններով պիտի խոսեք, որ խոսամ, դուք շատ երկար եք խոսում։ I can show you that the solution has been found throughout the research that, you know, we can, within 1.5 feet, we can keep all the բոլոր քանի մեքենաների երեք
Երկու մեքենաների կայանատեղիներ են։
You can still say-
Ներողություն։ Այդ բիզնես կենտրոնը երեք կենտրոններ են, իրաց խանութների դիմացի պարկինգներին ոչ ոք ձեռ չի տվել։ Կողքի կանգնած է ստոպ սայնը եւ մեքենան։
There are 3 business centers there, and no one has touched their parkings. Next to each other are the car and the stop sign.
Եվ միաժամանակ հարգելի
At the same time,
Տիկին Էլեն Ասատրյան, ամենայն հարգանքներս ձեզ,
dear Madam,
ես լրացուցիչ խնդրել էի ձեզ հետ հանդիպում առանձնազրույց ունենալու, շնորհակալ եմ ապահովելու համար այդ հարցազրույցը։
I have asked for a personal interview with you. Thank you for guaranteeing it.
Ձեզ մոտից հեռանալուց դեկտեմբերի 12-ին, երբ որ ավարտվեցին մեր զրույցը,
On December 12th, when our conversation ended and I left,
հույս ունեի, որ մասնակի փոփոխություն կապահովի երկու պարկինգների այդ խնդրի հետ
I
կապված
had hopes that a certain inch
երկու պարկինգների
that you would, you know, certain changes would be made for those 2 parkings.
գոնե մեկը որպես հանդիկապ կներկայացվի
At least for the one of
Որպես
it to
լուծում?
be a switch to a handicap as a solution.
եւ այդպիսի հույսով վերադարձա տուն
And I returned home with that.
ընդամենը նոյեմբերի 16-ին առավոտյան աշխատակիցները արդեն մեծ աղմուկով փողոցում չափագրումներ էին անում
On November 16 in the morning, they were already measuring the streets.
եւ սկսեցին փողոցը ամբողջությամբ ներկել առանց որևէ նախազգաշական որևէ բանի։
Ժամանակը սպարել է։
Yeah, their time is over.
Your time is
10
up.
րոպե է արդեն չեմ
Շատ
կարող
բարի։
արտադրեմ։
Ես
Պարոն, չեմ կարող։
փոխանցում եմ
Եթե կարող եք, այո։ Շնորհակալ։
եւ ակնկալում եմ գրավոր պատասխան։
Այո,
Շատ շնորհակալություն։
իհարկե։
Our final public comment is by,
Clerk Abajian, was the translator provided by the city?
we hired the translator. He's not a city staff member. He's hired through our contracted translation services.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Our final public speaker is Beth Brooks. Beth Brooks, you're on air. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My first question is, when Dan Brotman just made a comment earlier about, when we were talking about sanctuary cities, he said that he had spoken individually. I'm just hoping that it wasn't individually among the council members, because that would be a violation of the Brown Act. My next comment is that, I'm very much concerned about low-income renters in this city. And I believe that all new housing development increases rents across the board for every renter here because it increases the market rate. So being that that is the case, and Glendale seems really hell-bent on new development, I would like video memorialization here of whether any of you are landlords on the council, or your families are landlords, or if you're involved in housing development in any way, including construction, and whether or not any of you have benefited financially from any new housing developments that you have given the green light for or will give the green light for. I would like memorialization of that either on video or on paper, because that would show to me a great conflict of interest. My next comment, which I didn't think I would even talk about because Patrick Murphy brought up some great points, is outreach. The outreach from Glendale is atrocious. There is no outreach. Passive outreach is not outreach. You have to literally go to people. If you post things on social media, you're assuming that people will come to you. That is not active outreach. You have to send information to people's addresses. I don't know. People think just because you have social media that people will look at that social media. They will not. You either you have to have the ability for people to phone in comments that you then transcribe, or that you set up surveys by phone, and people have to know about that when you either send them mail notification, or, I'm not kidding, as the census does, you knock on people's doors, because there are critical decisions being made here, and they end up being made by a couple of people. And this is ridiculous. Who handles outreach in the city government? Because whoever it is, they're doing a lousy job. And you have all different departments doing outreach. You have a Facebook page for one department, another Facebook page for another department. The website, which is written very well, is a nightmare. You have to click on 12 million things to find anything. And there are double entries where under residents you have this information, but then you have to go over here under public works. It's really, you have to get your stuff together here. And the last thing is that Patrick Murphy mentioned is, do you even have a department of financial efficiency? Do you ever try to save money? I don't see that. I don't think this is the case. I don't think this is happening. Because I don't see that you try to save money at all. You just spend money. And I also say that because apparently I got some emails from people who heard the comments after I made comments to the city council in December, who were saying how I didn't understand budgets. Well, guess what? I can figure out how to read a budget in probably hours or days. But what I do have is the ability to comprehend and analyze, which I think is much more superior to at least one of you on the board, who apparently was the one who commented that I don't know how to read a budget. So I really don't know what's going on. This you can't continue like this. This is ridiculous. You can't just have a couple of people making decisions about everything. And again, so that's my comment. My comments. Thank you very much. And and the last one. Do I have another second?
You have 25 seconds.
If the police do not check on the immigration status of people in their jails, they are missing criminal backgrounds that could involve murder or rape in foreign countries. So they should be doing that. Because people could have criminal records in other countries, and those people endanger the lives of residents of Glendale. That's a huge, huge mistake.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Right, there you have it.
I don't know what Ms. Brooks wants us to say or not say, but in terms of profiting from anything that's a real estate development here in the city of Glendale, obviously I haven't. I don't think anyone else per se has. As far as being a landlord, I do not rent property to anyone. The only property I own is the home my wife and I bought approximately 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, that I live in with my son. That is, some would argue, still owned by the bank, and we pay for to be able to live there until we're able to pay it off. So hopefully that satisfies her curiosity, and for anyone else wanting to know what our sources of income are, or how we are able to, just get by. The Form 700s, which we file annually and that are public record, that we sign under a penalty of perjury, I think are the specific way we have transparency in this city. If she would like, I'm happy to meet with her in person and walk her through the process of finding those documents and understanding them, and I hope she didn't take any offense to anything I've ever said. I don't suggest that she can't understand budgets. I don't think anyone else has, but I welcome her thoughts and opinions during the public comment period, as I do any resident of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I feel like I need to comment on that as well. I'm not a landlord, don't own anything but the condo I bought at the fall of the market, as part of a first-time home buyers program. And I have time and again said that had I not purchased that property back in 2011, I probably would not be able to afford to live in the city of Glendale now in order to serve on the city council. And as a matter of fact, I've been living off of my savings to serve my city in the last 2 years. So.
I guess I'll jump in here. Yes, I own one home. It's the one I live in. I don't rent out any part of it. I don't have any other property. And yes, I am also living off my savings because the $20,000 a year salary we get here just doesn't
You get
really
20?
cut
No,
it.
I'm kidding. But I would also say that as far as our homes, for if anyone does go through our statements of economic interest, it was my understanding per our legal counsel in the city attorney's office, that we don't list our homes as real property in economic interest.
Correct, it's not required.
Thank you. But saying it publicly so Ms. Brooks and others can know.
That leaves me. Yeah, I purchased my home in 1999 with my wife. We purchased 2 other properties for our children in late 2000s and still own it. It's a stash away for my children because with today's prices, I couldn't even buy a house today. So, but I didn't benefit from any of the developments that happen in Glendale. I don't work for developers, and I don't, none of that. So I don't, and 700 forms are public records. They can take a look at it, and we file it every time. So thank you.
All right. Now that we have all of that settled, do I have an adjournment?
Yes, I'll move to adjourn the meeting in memory of Jack Woolworth.
Second.
All right. Stay safe, Glenda.